Hello and welcome to part 6 of Write Essentials 12-part novel writing programme. My name is Sarah Hull, and in this session I'll be looking at the importance of writing for your reader as well as for yourself, and how to transfer the story in your imagination to your readers as effectively as possible, using the words on the page. If you want to write just for yourself, that's absolutely fine and can be very liberating. But if you want to write for commercial gain, or just for the wider world in general, I recommend thinking about your target reader right from the start. Assuming you want people you've never met before to end up reading your book, you'll probably be aiming to get it into the bookshops. In which case, I recommend researching what books are there on the market that are like your book. What are they classed as in terms of genre, and whereabouts would you find them in a bookshop? This will give you a good idea about where your book is headed. You do need to be wary, however, of writing a book that is like a book on the market that is currently selling well, because trends do come and go, and it'll take a while to get a book written, edited and publicised. Some books tend to have a wider appeal, whereas others are read by a more specific audience. So once you've decided what book you're writing, you need to ask yourself whether it's more likely to be read by men or women or both, younger people or older people or people of all ages, and why it is that people read that sort of book. So crime stories or thrillers will be action-packed and fast-paced. A fantasy story will draw the reader into an amazing made-up world. Romantic fiction will always have a happy ending and quite often end with a marriage. While you may write something that crosses genres or even challenges the conventions of a genre, you need to understand how they work and why they work before you start experimenting. Otherwise, you're likely to end up with something that's obscure and inaccessible. This is all about knowing your market and writing for your market. It's about writing for your reader, the person you want to pick up your book, buy it, read it, love it, tell everyone else to buy it, and hopefully buy your next one. And thinking about your reader as you write should make your writing better. When a reader is immersed in a really good book, it's like they've fallen in through a window into another world, and they're there watching the story unfold, a bit like watching a film or a play. And that means that everything that happens in the story has more impact. It's more exciting and it's more interesting because it almost seems real. And this is something I've been talking about again and again all throughout these sessions. If you have a well-developed setting, a carefully structured story, real breathing characters, and an effective narrative voice, all of these things will help to draw your reader in and immerse them in the story. And once you've got them there, you want to keep them there. You want to keep them immersed and reading the story as the story unfolds. And the way to do that, to keep them immersed, is to create strong, clear visuals in the mind of your reader. So how do you apply this to the page? When you come to writing a scene in your novel, I recommend starting with the big things and then working down to the word-by-word details. And for this, I'm going to go back to key aspects I've covered in previous sessions and look at things that you'll be thinking about as you write each scene. I will also be referring to scenes rather than chapters, because each scene should create a good, strong, clear visual, and you might have several scenes in each chapter. So first of all, structure. Before you start writing a scene in your book, you need to know what your story's about. So is it about two people getting together? Is it about somebody going on a quest? Is it about someone committing a murder and then the detective having to find out who did it? What is the central storyline for your novel? And then, based on that, you need to ask yourself, what does this specific scene that you're about to write contribute towards the story? How does it move the plot along, from the establishing of the protagonist's objective near the beginning of the story to the climax when we find out whether or not that objective is achieved near the end of the story? You'll find that some scenes are key scenes. They contain an important development within the story. Other scenes will have a more minor development, a small change or progression in the plot. Other scenes will serve to introduce a character or multiple characters. And other scenes will link scenes together so that your plot isn't full of holes. And then you need to think about what's just happened in the story. Obviously this will be easier as you work out more of your plot, But when you start each scene, I recommend thinking about what's just happened in the story, what the resulting atmosphere is, and the mood of the characters. Unnecessary scenes can be cut later on, or others can be moved around, but thinking about this as you write each scene can help keep the book and each part of the story as it develops on the right track, as well as helping it to maintain a good pace. Next, setting. And again, going back to material I previously covered. When you start your novel, you need to know where and when your story is set, and specifically, in what world, a real one or an imagined one, what country, what region, what city or town or village, what street, what building, even what room is your scene set. And at what time of year is it? What year is it? What month is it? What day? And even what time of day when your scene starts. And based on this, based on these decisions you make about these things, what does your setting look like? What smells and sounds are there? What does it feel like to be in that place, to walk into that place, or to wake up in it, or to be found in it even? And then voice. What voice are you using to tell the story? Who is your narrator? What is their point of view? Are they taking part in the story, or are they just observing events? And if they're just observing, do they have an opinion of anything or anyone in the story? Do they reflect a character's opinions, or do they sympathise with a particular character or characters? And finally, character. Introducing a character into a scene will reveal how well you know them, how well you've developed that character. So when the character enters the scene, you'll be thinking about their past and their personality and their physicality, how they sit or stand or move around. But also think about how they're thinking or feeling, and what do they want at that exact moment. All of these things add to the picture in your mind. They're key parts of the story you're telling, and in each scene you'll be communicating this information to your reader. The story unfolding in your mind is probably very clear and detailed and immersive. You can probably imagine being in that place and meeting those characters, but it needs to be as strong when it's transferred to the mind of your reader. To do this, you'll need to show all these things to the reader and not tell them. You'll hear this phrase a lot, show, don't tell, and that's because it's central to good storytelling. Telling is easier, and every writer will fall into it at some point. Telling is where the narrator literally tells the reader, in the worst case scenarios, everything. They tell the reader what's happening, why it's happening, and how to react to it. For example, it was the 1st of November 1779 and a horrible stormy night when Jack walked into the pub on the corner of Henderson Street in Bristol and found lots of people having an interesting fight. What does that tell you? The narrative voice uses the third person past tense and is following a character called Jack. It's 1st of November 1779. It's stormy. The scene opens with a character entering a pub on the corner of Henderson Street in Bristol, which I'm pretty sure doesn't exist, by the way. Jack walks into the pub and finds a fight taking place. This is of interest. In this example, all of the information is told to the reader by the narrator, more or less as a list of statements, even that the fight itself is interesting. Telling is dull, it's patronising, and it will distance your reader from the narrative rather than drawing them in. So here's a key question. What is the evidence for these statements? What can you see or hear or feel that shows these things? When you watch a film, you don't have a narrator telling you what's happening or why, because you don't need one. You watch the scenes unfold and you work things out for yourself. Good writing will do something similar. It will use well-chosen words to build up a strong visual in your mind and allow you to observe things happening and to work things out for yourself without them being explained. So going back to those statements made by the narrator earlier. Well, the one about the narrative voice using the third person past tense and following a character called Jack, we can just leave for now. So going on to the others. Number 1, it's the 1st of November 1779. How would somebody walking into that scene know it was that date? The material the buildings are made out of, the street lighting, a passing horse and carriage. what the characters are wearing and eating and drinking. All of these things will indicate that the story is set in the past. References to the cold, to the leaves falling off the trees, to the sun going down earlier in the evening will indicate that it's autumn. And then think of the words you're using to describe these things. So instead of the word pub, it should probably be tavern. Instead of fight, why not use the word brawl? These words will again indicate the story is not set now, it's set at an earlier time in history. So long as these things are accurate, they will indicate to the reader roughly when the story is set. The exact date is trickier. So you need to ask yourself, does the reader need to know the exact date? If so, think about when in the story the reader needs to know the exact date, and try and find a way of revealing it to the reader through the story. Statement number 2, it's stormy. Again, how is this revealed? And again, going back to setting, what can you see or smell or feel that would reveal this? Maybe waves crashing or ships in the nearby harbour creaking. It is Bristol after all, a port. Or the wind whistling up the narrow street and raindrops hammering down from a black sky. Also, what the characters do can help reveal this. So instead of saying it's cold and raining, you could have Jack wrapping his arms around his chest to keep the wind from whipping open his sodden overcoat. Number 3, Jack walks into a pub on the corner of Henderson Street in Bristol. What might indicate that it's the city of Bristol that he's in? Maybe a reference to a passing landmark could reveal that it's Bristol. Or maybe you could just leave it for now that it's a port and reveal that it's Bristol specifically later on. Think about how Jack approaches the pub. Does he look for a street name saying Henderson Street? Or does he mark something he passes because he's been given directions to the pub and told to look out for it? Is it significant what street the pub is on? The fact that the narrator mentions the name of the street suggests the character has not ended up there by accident. Number 4, a fight is taking place. Well, this would probably be quite hard to miss. But what exactly is happening? When Jack opens the door, what is going on in the pub that shows him there's a fight taking place? Think about, again, maybe the noise he hears, even before he enters the pub. A roar or a babble might erupt as Jack opens the door, or even before he's opened the door. Then several different noises can be picked out. Glass smashing, tables crashing over, and a thunderous cheer from one dark corner. And then you can pick out individual characters and movements to further draw your reader in and build up the visual. Maybe a brandy bottle whistling past Jack's head. 2 men crashing into the bar mid-tussle. A sailor aiming a stall at one of the brawling pair, missing and sending it crashing through a misted window. And finally, number 5, this is of interest. Don't tell your reader how to interpret the scene. Describing it as interesting is doing just that. If you've described the scene well, the reader will find it interesting and won't need to be told how to react. This is all about using the right words in the right order for the right effect. Really think about how to describe something in order to create a strong visual in the reader's mind and reveal to them what they need to know when they need to know it. This is in the detail of each scene, the specifics, like the sound of the rain, or exactly what item is being thrown across the bar, or what words a character uses. Finally, have confidence in your writing and in the intelligence of your reader that they will work things out for themselves and will remember what has already been revealed to them without it being laboured, repeated, or even explained. A strong visual will stay with your reader, and then as the story unfolds, they will notice changes in the characters and developments in the story, will realise what these things indicate, and will follow the route you take them on, right from page 1 to page 384, or however long your novel is. This is the last session in part 1 of our creative writing programme, looking at how to plan a novel. The second half of the course, focusing on how to edit a novel, will take place from January to June 2016, with the first live class happening on Tuesday the 5th of January at 6 p.m. in the White Horse Bar on the Royal Mile in Edinburgh. The pre-recorded version of the class will then be available online from Wednesday the 6th of January. In the meantime, do check out our website for details of our other activities and ways that we can help you make your writing as good as it can be. Or follow us on Facebook or on Twitter. Till the next time, happy writing.